And I was taught at MGM, like he said, I was a staff. But they actually sent me to like film school. I learned every aspect of making a film, from being on the set, being an apprentice, carrying 2,000-foot reels, everything you can imagine, sound, music, and it really helped my career. What I was taught, and it cost me a few jobs, was that when I did a film, I wouldn't allow anybody in the editing room while I edited a film. Directors weren't allowed. And we would run dailies, of course. But like Paul Verhoeven and I remember our first film, and I have to thank Tina Hirsch, because she turned it down. And I wanted to work with Paul. I didn't care what he did. And so we did RoboCop, and then, of course, with our career.
Which you were nominated for an Academy Award for.
Yeah.
Your first for nomination.
Yeah. And that was a surprise. I mean, Paul was so great. Paul would, when you work with great directors, even John McTiernan. John shot a lot of film, but he was a good guy. They all left me alone. And that was just my way. What you saw on this film, the Total Recall, is what came off my bench, except for what I had to do for the MPAA.
Which looks like it was probably a lot.
It was a lot.
There was a lot of people reacting to the Paul Verhoeven squibs in the audience.
But I have a good story. I was having dinner with Paul and my wife, and Paul Verhoeven and his wife. I can't remember her name right now, but anyway, we're in this little restaurant right down from Fox on Pico, and who walks in but Arnold and Maria. And I had never met Maria, and he introduced me. And I said, I'd like to introduce you to Paul Verhoeven. Oh my God, he said, and Arnold actually grabbed my chair. I'm still in it. And he picks me up and moves me over. And he sits down next to Paul, and they started talking about this movie. And that's when Paul and Arnold first met. Just a coincidence thing. But I went from high school right into working, to driving a truck, to get in the union. And that was really fun because you couldn't get a job unless you remember the union. And you couldn't you had to work 30 days in the union in order to get a job. So, I mean, I don't know how it worked, but I got it.
Now, thankfully, you made it in there. So because you had worked with Verhoeven before, was this something that he sent you and he said, Frank, I have to have you on this? Like, obviously, because you were nominated for RoboCop.
What happened was I did RoboCop, and then right away, luckily, did Die Hard. And I was really kind of worn out, and I was asked by McTiernan to do Hunt for Red October at the same time that Paul was going to do this. I owed karma. I owed Paul, because RoboCop was both of us. He just said, do you think anybody will ever go see a movie about a robot? And I said, I don't know, but so that's why I did this, and then, of course, I did Basic after that.
Yeah, you've contributed so much to Sharon Stone's legend with both Total Recall and Basic Instinct.
I knew Sharon when she was probably 18. When I was doing Die Hard, I believe she was Joel Silver's girlfriend at that time. She was 18, and she was in, I think her first film was Action Jackson or something like that. And yeah, she's a terrific actress.
She's well, when you're cutting her, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
But I mean, you can, when I'm watching this, I actually enjoyed what I saw. and I haven't seen it in a long time. Went by pretty fast, so.
Yeah, no, it's paced beautifully. One thing that sets this movie apart from so many others for me is that before this, Arnold was playing a lot of like superhuman characters. His characters were always so extraordinary. But in this movie, and this totally applies to your work as an editor because performance is your craft. How was it when Arnold had to become a totally normal guy who gets thrust into that?
I have a good story for that. I was in Mexico City. It's where we shot this. And at that time, the Academy Awards were on, but I was down here in Mexico. And Walter Mirisch, who was a very good friend and a wonderful man, great producer, called, was going to be given the Irving Thalberg Award at the Academies. So I called him to congratulate him, and I asked Walter, is there any award that you haven't won? And he said, well, I haven't won the Nobel Peace Prize yet. But so he says, how's the things going down there? And I said, well, I'm going to tell you something, and you probably won't believe me, but Arnold Schwarzenegger is really giving us a good performance. And he goes, Frank, I think you've been in Mexico too long. That's a true story.
In addition to Arnold with that incredible transformation to an everyman, just construction worker, the thing that really sticks out about the movie now, 36 years later, especially now with everything being so AI, wondering like what's real, what's fake when we just like open our phones every day. The miniature effects in this movie have really, really stood the test of time. The one that knocks me out is when they arrive in Mars and they're riding on the train and suddenly realize it's a composite shot of Arnold standing with the man. It pulls out into a miniature, it wipes the mountain and becomes another miniature, and then you can see that it's a matte painting with the city of Mars behind it. So what was it like to build that stuff? Because I saw ILM was up there.
That was all Eric Breving. Eric was our visual effects, and he was fantastic. I mean, he was trying to please us all the time, and it was out in his office was way out in the Simi Valley somewhere, and Paul
that's where all the effects guys are.
Take turns driving from where we were doing Coralco on 8800 Sunset to Simi Valley. We alternate days to go see where his progress and give him any input. But he was fantastic, and he's a great guy, and he's really did great things for the visual effects people. One thing, one note that Paul used to give me notes. He would sit with an assistant and write some notes, and he'd say, if you address 50% of these, I'll really be happy. And of course I would do it. It isn't that I wouldn't do what they say, it's just that sometimes I didn't think they were right, so.
Yeah, looking for the note behind the note.
Yeah, so. But he said, we got to get this, when we go to the end of this movie, we got to get to the end really fast because we don't want the audience to be able to think what they just saw. So that was our deal. Get past those volcanoes or whatever they were that were coming out of the mountain. Air. Anyway, no, it was a fun movie to do. Paul and I both got sick this time in Mexico, but other than that, it was pretty fun. I mean, it was I just cut every day, and he shot every day. He did get mad at me once. I mean, really mad. And I was in the editing room, and I had sent a message to this. Usually, if I go to the set, I should have done this. I should have gone all the time. But when I went to the set, they knew something was wrong. So I went to the set, and at the opening scene where you see Sharon and Paul having breakfast and everything, I can't remember which one it was, but he missed one shot. And he knew it, but it pissed him off that I asked him for it. So he comes flying in the cutting room that night. He says, let me see. So I show him, and I tell him, I think I need a reverse or whatever it was. I can't remember what the shot was. And he just looked at me and stormed out of the room. Next day, I see on the schedule they're going to do an added scene with that scene. And it worked out fine. Then we were pals. We'd go to dinner, and he'd be blocking out on a napkin his next day's shoot. And he was just a regular good guy. Everybody thinks he's a maniac, but he could get scary at times. I could see when I should go on and when I shouldn't. But you can see his touch in this movie. And I gotta say, the movies that came along, like, Die Hard and Total Recall and all those Verhoeven movies. I did other movies, and my assistants were fabulous. They saved my butt so many times. This lady right here on a movie called Deep Blue Sea.
Let's hear it for Deep Blue Sea.
It was a kind of a political thing where Warner's is gonna take the film over, and a lot of the dailies we couldn't find. But my friend over here, she dug, and she just came up and found all the stuff and helped me out. But all my assistants on this, even this one here, I mean, I would put the film together, but I give it to them and say, put some sound and stuff with it, because you can't show it to the new generation of producers and directors and studios like we did in the 50s and 60s. What they saw when you ran a movie was just the movie, the film, and the production sound, and they made their choices from that. Yeah. But now you have to do everything. And Sheridan Sotelo was the lady's name.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of Deep Blue Sea, there's one question I wanted to ask you. There was a long-standing rumor that Sam Jackson, being in the middle of a speech and then suddenly swallowed by a shark, was an editor's idea.
I got that reputation for taking over films, and like Tombstone, it was unreleasable, and luckily I was able to make something out of it. And it was 3 hours and 25 minutes when I saw it the first time. But my daughter worked with me, who's sitting here, Rosemary Wheeler. She worked in sound and dialogue, and her father was an ACE member, Jack Wheeler. I don't know if you remember the name or not, but he was a film editor, and it's been a wonderful career, and I'm really overwhelmed by this because I get embarrassed. I don't like to get in front. I tried once I was called down to the set by a great director by the name of Robert Aldrich. Yeah. And he was directing, I can't remember the name of the movie right now. Which one? Might have been The Killing of Sister George. And they had a part for a film editor. He called me. So I couldn't stop looking at the camera. I tried, and I tried to do something, but he said, try to whistle. I lasted about 3 hours, and he fired me. Yeah. And I'll go back and cut. So
back into the room by yourself.
But I also got on all my wife and I have been married for 62 years.
Wow.
And met her at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer in 1961 or 62. And wasn't too long after that we got married. I had come out of the Army then by then. But she was great and supportive. And had she not worked at Metro, we would probably never would have lasted because hours
she
that
understood,
we put in
yeah.
were, sometimes I wouldn't even come home at night. I mean, this is the way it was. And how I ever got to be a senior VP at Warner's, I'll never know.
Wow.
It just happened.
That was also the year that you cut Lethal Weapon 4, which,
Yeah.
for
First
my money,
time I
is
ever-
some of the biggest action ever put on screen. Right, but right the year before The Matrix, when everything went digital, you guys actually drove a car through the Sherman Oaks Galleria and back onto the 101.
This is exactly right. I remember that. Dick Donner was a great director too, and we just couldn't. Thank God, I was doing these other films that turned out to be great, and I was offered to do Braveheart, but because of my relationship with Mario Kassar and Andy Vanya, who were the head of Corelco. I was with Corelco for probably 12 years, and they always treated me great. I owed them. They wanted me to go to Rome, to Cortina, to do Cliffhanger, because Rennie, I know this is going on film, but Rennie, you shoot a lot of film. And I just went because they asked me to be there.
I remember in the commentary for Cliffhanger that you did where you talked about some days you would work and the only thing that you would do was watch film. You wouldn't even get to cut because he was shooting so many feet of film every day.
That one, and when I did The Jazz Singer, Neil was a wonderful guy and is a wonderful guy, just that he's not well right now. But Neil was so paranoid about matching that on every shot was 5 cameras. So every day I'd get 30, 40, 50,000 feet of film.
Yeah.
And these poor assistants would be putting it together. And I'd be looking at it once to see if anything's wrong, and then I have to run it again at night with the crew. So that one, I always remember that Barry Spikings, who was the head of EMI at that time, came to me once and said, "We want to make this a Christmas release." And I said, "What year?" But I got a million stories, and I enjoyed my time.
Think of how many more movies you could have cut if you could have just ganged them all and watched all the cameras at once.
No, it was. I would. It was still on a movie then, and we had chems, but no. They had to actually sync everything up. So that was quite an experience.
A lot of film to watch. Well, let's throw it out to the audience just because having Frank here, obviously, this is such a joy and a pleasure. If anybody has any questions for Frank, throw a hand up. Happy to take some questions right there in the front. Yeah?
I'm going to bring a mic to you.
Oh, perfect.
Hi. I'm wondering, all these great films you've cut, and going through the action, was there any specific methodology that you remember applying to all of these when it comes to cutting action that you felt helped the rhythm and the pacing and the geography of the action works so well as it does in all of these great films?
Well, that's something I can't answer because you actually asked me the same question that the president of Warner Brothers did once. I called me in the office and asked me straight out, "How do you know when to cut?" And I said, I can't answer that because I don't know. I just have a feeling or whatever it is. It's like you would do a painting. Maybe your sky would be a few clouds and maybe light blue, and mine would be darker or something. It's a matter of just, it was a feeling with me. I mean, I can remember doing probably the hardest film that I ever worked on was Basic Instincts, and I was working on it in San Francisco while they were shooting, and then when we came back home, I would look at some of the stuff I did and in a relaxed mood sit down and look at it, and it was terrible. You know, there's no timing. It was just hacked. You know, it was cut. You know, and so I just tore it all apart and started over again. And then I got in this rhythm, and Jerry Goldsmith, John Williams, Lalo Schiffer, and all these guys. They're all at MGM when I was a kid and they were kids, and I got to know them all, and because I love music, and I'd finish a day's work and go on the scoring stage to listen to them record something, whatever they're doing. But Jerry used to say that my musical background helped me with tempo, and it's just something I can't explain it.
I wish we could bottle and sell it just because of your filmography. You basically invented how we think about action films in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, but
with
see,
like RoboCop, Total Recall, Die Hard, The Hitcher, Tombstone. I mean, there's so many, the Roadhouse. There's so many great films that you did that establish how modern cutters are cutting action.
Joel Silver said to me, excuse what I'm going to say, but this is what he said. He said, I finished with Roadhouse and went in and helped him. And he said, boy, we even made this piece of shit work. But that was Joel.
Still works. Still works 40 years later.
Action is, for me, I think action is, you can get away with murder with cuts and stuff. So it's not, cutting dialogue like in Basic was torture. I mean, it was torture. But, once I got the first thing right, everything else is, because I didn't have to look for a performance. What Paul got was either, like I said, good or great. So it was, and Mike Douglas is one of the finest actors that I've ever worked with. I mean, he was amazing, from reverses to fronts.
Not to mention, too, Jan de Bont shooting it. So
Jan
great
was a
blocking,
good friend.
great photography.
Jan and Jos Fagano were the two DPs that I worked with, seemed like all the time. And Jan de Bont was fabulous, and Yost is great. They were just really, it makes a difference, having all these great guys. And the music, just like when we were looking for a theme for Basic Instincts, and we just couldn't get it. We go to Paul over John's house, Jerry's house, and listen. He just couldn't. Finally, one day, the theme came on, and he said, "That's it. You nailed it." So I remember this one of them. I got nominated 3 times for an Academy Award, but never won, which is terrible.
Boo.
I don't care what they say about being nominated. You want to win. So I was at the awards, and I knew some of the musicians in the orchestra, especially a guy named Emil Richards is what he went by. His name was Emil Radokia. He's the guy that wrote the theme for Flintstone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Anyway, I went down to see and say hello to some of the guys, and they said, "You're winning tonight." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, the only song we rehearsed for your category was Basic. I said, "Don't do that to me, And of course, oh well. I had a great career. I couldn't ask. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of friends.
How great to be nominated too for the movie that you said you had to tear apart because you were like, this is just hacked together. This doesn't make any sense. And then you get a Academy Award nomination for it.
Oh, you mean Basic?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. Boy, would we have a time with that one? I mean, the MPA. Everything I did with Paul, MPA. When I ran with my assistants, my first cut of RoboCop, and we're sitting there watching. It was about an hour and 50 minutes, maybe 55. And the lights come up, and I look at it, and I look at everybody, and think, oh, yeah, it's great. The guy, the projectionist, opens up the port and yells down, it's an X for sure. So, but it was. I mean, my goodness.
How many times did you guys have to go back on RoboCop? Because that X-rated cut is finally seeing the light of day.
That film, I believe, caused the MPAA to change their rules. Because I know we went at least 10 times on RoboCop. But we had to do a lot of stuff because there was some stuff we really wanted to keep, so we had to give up on. There was at the opening of the movie where they shoot him in the head. We had this great shot that you're right on his face and it is him. And the way they did this visual effects thing, the camera there's no cut and it goes to the back of his head, and you blow his head off. Well, they wouldn't allow it. They spent like $40,000, and you're talking 1985 on one shot, and then they wouldn't let us use it. I don't think it ever has been put in. So, but yeah, my biggest problem was the MPAA.
And that one too. That was your first nomination. Was RoboCop.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only film I ever did that technically it's perfect. I mean,
I think we can all agree that.
There's no
for sure.
But like I watch this and I see some mistakes, but nobody else will see them. Except my daughter, she used to see it. Said he opened the door twice on some scene. I don't know. But it's been fun, and I love sitting in an audience like this. I remember going to New York for a press junket on Die Hard, and we did it in Times Square, and the place was packed. Nobody had any idea that the humor in the movie, and they were in it. They were yelling, standing up, screaming at the movie during the writer. Don't go in there! Don't go in there! And it was really fun. They were involved, and it's fun to sit with an audience like this and who get a lot of the stuff, And Arnold, he's Arnold. I mean, he's good in all his stuff. He's the smartest guy, probably one of the smartest men I've ever met. He is brilliant. He's not that dumb weightlifter that you always thought of. He's really a smart man and a great guy. I like him very much.
Well, he owes you for this. This is definitely one of his greatest performances. Like a lot of us that grew up in the late '90s, early 2000s, we remember the Arnold Schwarzenegger sound machine, where people would like prank call, and almost every single line of it was from Total Recall.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, like all those.
I know.
It's a very, very,
Be back.
very quotable film, and the comedy still works like so incredibly as well as the action and the violence.
There was one word I used to tease Arnold about, which was he couldn't say ridiculous. So when in that scene, every time I see it, I can remember. I don't know if we used him or somebody else, but we got because he's gonna get mad at me for this one. He used to say ridiculous. Couldn't get ridiculous out, but this film actually was written for Richard Dreyfuss. I was in Rome doing a real stinker called Red Sonja, but I was there to do Total Recall. and the Total Recall was going to be the second, because we were going to be there 2 years. And it was written originally for Richard Dreyfuss to be in that part. And then when Arnold took it, they, of course, rewrote it all. And Ron Shusett, I just don't know how he came up with all this stuff, that you see. But everybody, it's when you work with good people, and they always make you look good, It's like, I had no idea at the end of Die Hard that they were going to put Let It Snow in. It was one of my assistants did it as a joke. I was running the movie for the studio, and I hadn't finished the last reel, and I just finished it while they were still started the first reel. And so when I got into the projection room, my assistants were still putting some sound and music to the last reel. So when it came up, I had no idea what I was going to hear. And when that song came on, the executives all stood up and yelled and screamed, and it's a hit and all that. And that's the first film I had to do with creative executives. And they all said it was too slow. It's too slow. And I kept arguing that if we don't know these people at the beginning, it isn't going to work. So I had a full minute that still should come out of that movie that the studio wouldn't let me take it out because they previewed it in somewhere up near San Francisco, a little town, I can't remember what the name. And they got like top 2 boxes, 99. And so I got the word, you can't touch a frame of the movie. So.
And that was your second Academy Award nomination.
Yeah.
Incredible run. Incredible run.
Larry Gordon just said to me, the first day I met Larry Gordon was the producer, one of the producers, or really the guy, the big guy. Can you do the same thing for this movie that you did, the last one? I said, I hope so, But it worked out. It was, when it's the first one, they had that humor in with all the act violence stuff. But Paul did that. You could see Paul's stuff, in the first cut of RoboCop was just brutal. I mean, even for me, that opening scene was amazing. But he put humor. It's like when you see that movie, there's a line right at the very beginning, and we were at a preview, and the audience laughed so hard that we couldn't take it out. It was an extra, just yelling a line so we get some dough. And he said, "Call a paramedic." After this guy got just blown to bits, he yelled, "Call a paramedic," and the audience went crazy. They loved it,
It has to stay.
Still in, it's still there.
Well, everybody, give a nice big warm round of applause for Frank. Frank, thank you so much for coming to join us.
Thank you for doing this. It really makes me feel good.